Hey kids, Mr. Murray here, and we are talking about a more advanced factoring technique today, and it is used to factor trinomials of the quadratic form here, ax squared bx plus c, but specifically when you've got a coefficient in front of your x squared other than just 1. So when you've got 2x squared or 3x squared, or in this case 6x squared is the first example we're going to look at. So to factor something that looks like this, since it's not just x squared like the simpler ones we've been doing lately, you could still kind of approach this from an unfoiling technique and say, all right, I know this is going to be the product of two binomials, if it factors at all. But the problem is whatever you put here and here has to multiply. When you do that first, has to multiply to give you 6x squared. And since there's a 6 in front, that could mean that maybe this is 6x and this is 1x, or maybe this is 3x and this is 2x. And then you have to worry about all the combinations of what goes here has to multiply to -5, and which one should go with the 6 or the 1 or the 3 and the 2. And that's not a bad method if you can sort of mentally unfoil things pretty fast. But I'm going to show you what's called the AC method, which takes some of that guesswork out of it for you. So I found a lot of students actually prefer this method, even though this isn't the method I learned when I was in school. It's pretty good. So it's called the AC method because the very first step in it is you're going to multiply A times C, right? That's what AC means. So in this problem, you're going to start by doing 6 times -5. Okay, so 6 times -5, that's AC here. And we get -30 from that. Okay, so now here's what we do. Now, this is similar to what we do with our other problems. I'm looking for two numbers that will multiply to be that -30 and will add up to be what's in the middle, which is -7. So I just had to account for that extra 6 that's there. That's why I'm not just saying what multiplies to -5. I'm accounting for this extra 6, and this will do that. So it adds that one little extra step. And now, can you come up with those two numbers? Those two numbers are -10 and +3. -10 and +3 will add up to -7 and multiply to be -30. Okay, and like always, that part, will always come to some people faster than others. But if you can come up with that combination, then you've done all the guesswork, and now it's going to be this same procedure every time. So here's what we do with those two numbers. So we start, our 6x squared stays the same, but what I'm going to do is in the middle, instead of this -7x, I'm going to rewrite it using these two numbers that I just came up with, the -10 and the +3. So I'm going to rewrite it as -10x +3x. And the -5 on the end stays the same. See, so all I really did was I just rewrote -7x as -10x + 3x, right? They still add up to be -7x, so I haven't done anything, illegal in the math world. But what I did was I found the perfect way to break it up into just these two numbers so that now I can use grouping. Now there are 4 terms, and I'm going to use grouping. And if I found the right two numbers, then I should find my grouping technique works, if you remember our grouping factoring. So the first group, I'm going to factor out the greatest common factor, which would be 2x. And when I take that 2x out, I'm going to have 3x minus 5. Out of this second group, it starts with a positive, so I'm going to factor out a positive, and in this case, just a 1. That's really the only thing you can take out. But when you take out, 1, you're not really changing it, and so you're still left with 3x minus 5, which is what you want to happen with grouping. You should have the same quantity here and there, so that in the very next step, you can factor out that common quantity of 3x minus 5. and the other quantity is 2x plus 1 after you factor out the common quantity. Or remember, some people like to put the 2x plus 1 first and the 3x minus 5 second. Doesn't matter. Same thing either way. So that was the first one, and you can see it takes a little bit more. So you have to come up with those two numbers, then rewrite the middle, then use grouping. But remember, the ultimate check, what you can always do is you can check by foiling these out and see if you get what you started with. So if I FOIL out, my first term is 3x times 2x will give you 6x squared. When you do your outers, 3x times positive 1 will give you plus 3x. When you do your inners, negative 5 times 2x is negative 10x. And when you do your last, you get negative 5 times 1, negative 5. And you can kind of see it taking shape. See how it's got 4 terms for right now. That's the 4 terms we figured out back here. But when you combine your like terms, you get your negative 7x in the middle. And that's exactly what you started with, so you know you did it right. Okay, so 2 more examples here, just so you see a couple and hopefully get the hang of it. But that's it. If you can get this down, this is one of the more complicated factoring procedures because it uses everything we've done basically. It kind of puts together the unfoiling approach, the greatest common factor, and grouping all in one. So it's kind of like the granddaddy of them all here. So number 2, and you would first look, remember, is there a greatest common factor I can take out? Because if there is, you want to. But there's nothing I can take out of these. So I'm going to go right to the old AC method. And remember, the middle is what we call B, so that's not used in the AC, at least in the first step. So AC would be 12 times positive 6, and we get positive 72. Then I'm looking for 2 numbers that will multiply to be 72, and those same 2 numbers have to add up to be what's in the middle, which is negative 17. What 2 numbers will do that? They've got to both be the same sign. They got to both be negative in this case, and that would be negative 9 and negative 8. Negative 9 and negative 8. Remember, if you have trouble coming up with that combination, you can make a list of the factors of 72. Start with 1 and 72, 2 and 36, 3 and 24, etc., until you get to 9 and 8. But we got those 2 numbers, negative 9, negative 8. Now here's what we do with them. Here's the key. Once you know the 2 magic numbers, you rewrite the middle term using that. So I keep 12x squared the same. In this middle, I'm going to rewrite as negative 9x minus 8x. And then I still have plus 6 on the end. So all I did was rewrite that middle. And now I've got 4 terms. I'm going to use my grouping. Out of the first group, what can you take out? 3x. When you take out 3x, you'll have 4x minus 3 on the inside. From the second group, it starts with a negative, so I'm going to factor out a negative, typically. And out of here, the greatest common factor you can take out is negative 2. When you take out negative 2, just remember both signs are going to change. So you're going to have 4x, and 6 divided by negative 2 is negative 3, as it should be if you've done it right. You should have the same thing here and there, because in the very next step, that's the common quantity. So I can factor it out. And in the other group, 3x minus 2. And there we go. Check it out. If you like, check by foiling it out. You should get exactly what you started with. Okay, one more example here. If you want to see if you've got it down, you could, pause it and see if you can do the problem and then check. Or just, watch another example. So again, I would always look, when I've got something leading off here, I would look for a greatest common factor. Is there something I can take out? Because sometimes you can take out that 8, remember. We've done problems like that. And then I don't have to do this method. But there's nothing I can take out, so I'm going right to the old first step. Just remember, it gets hot, you need AC. So when these factoring problems get hot, you need the AC method. So 8 times negative 3, that's your first step. Negative 24. And now I'm looking for 2 numbers that multiply to be that negative 24. And the same 2 numbers have to add up to be the middle term there, which is positive 5. what two numbers will do that? That would be 8 and -3. Hey, sometimes it's the same numbers you actually just did. It could be a possibility, remember? So you got the two numbers. What do you do with them? You rewrite the middle. So 8x squared stays the same, but this positive 5x, we're going to rewrite as positive 8x minus 3x. Or remember, you can put the -3x first and the positive 8x second. Doesn't really matter, as long as the 3 is negative and the 8 is positive. And then the -3 constant on the end stays the same. All we did was rewrite the middle. So now we've got 4 terms. Grouping, factor out that common factor. Out of this first group, I can take out 8x. When you take out 8x, you're going to have x plus 1. Out of the second group, starts with a negative. I'm going to take out a -3 in this case. When you take out -3, you're going to have x, and -3 divided by -3 is positive 1, as it should be. There's your common factor of x plus 1. So you take out your x plus 1, and in the other quantity, 8x minus 3. Check by foiling. It doesn't take that long, and you're guaranteed to know if you're right or wrong. And if you're off or you're wrong, maybe it was something you can just go back and fix a sign. Maybe you had them reversed, or maybe your factoring wasn't so hot in the middle here. But there we go, 3 AC examples. Hopefully it helped clear it up a little bit. If you have any questions, just ask, and as always, keep working hard.